Okay, the next person to come up is, he's like Sting. One name, one word name. He doesn't have a John Smith. It's Divyam. And this is a story about my native New York, his trip to the Bronx, my furusato. So you can hear the folk music playing. Anyway, Divyam.
Good evening. Please bear with me. It's my first public speech and my first microphone. All right, that's okay.
Your friend.
Hello, dear.
Your friend Mike.
So, let's go. I arrived in New York in November 1969 for what was my first trip abroad by myself. I was 22. My first job after finishing my time in the Navy was with Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Feather and Smith in Paris on the Champs Elysees. This is when I saw Nixon waving his way up the Champs Elysees in a limousine on Concorde's first official test flight. A few months later, De Gaulle instituted an exchange control in France, reducing considerably Merrill Lynch business there. Being the last one in, I became the first one out. That's when I decided to take my chances and go to New York to see what I could do there, on a tourist visa. Right. If you knew, remember, or imagine what New York was like at the end of the 60s, it was probably the most dangerous time to be there. Anti-war demonstrations, Nixon, Spiro Agnew, the sports of choice were shooting policemen at night in parking lots, muggings in the streets, in one's elevator, in the subways. Needless to say, I had no idea about all this. So fresh off the plane, I got myself a room at the YMCA, somewhere on Broadway, 19th Street, if I recall. I am a jazz fan, which is one of the main reasons why I came to the Big Apple. As soon as I had set my bag down, I bought the Village Voice to see who was playing where. And I saw that Jackie McLean was playing at the Slugs on Avenue F. Incidentally, this is where Lee Morgan was shot by his ex-wife about 1 year after I had left New York to come back to France. It would take me about a month of walking north-south and east-west across Manhattan before daring to ride the subways. It looked and felt too much like dragons breathing fire and smoke, with all sorts of strange people going in and out, and the noise. No problem. I just walked down Broadway until Washington Square. It took me a while to get to Washington Square, but it was a great walk down Broadway. I took in the sights, the people, and all there was to see in this new and vibrant country that seemed to never sleep. Once at Washington Square, I found out where Avenue F was, all the way east, and I started walking. It was getting dark, maybe a bit of snow or some drizzle started to fall. Exactly what November is supposed to look and feel like where I came from. Cold, dark, damp, and nasty. It was quite a walk to get to Avenue F, but I finally made it to the Slugs around 7 p.m. At that time, it was already night. There was a notice on the door saying that the club opened at 9 p.m. Nice one, mate. It was really dark. I looked around, no coffee shop around or any sign of life. I could see far away the lights of Washington Square. So I thought, all right, I'll go back towards the light and come back later. As soon as I started to walk back, 3 figures came out of the basement. Afro hair, army jackets. They surrounded me and asked me if I had a cigarette. Sure, I said, and I put my hand in my pocket to get my pack of Lucky Strikes and pass it around. The next thing I knew, a car screeched behind me. A hand caught me by the collar, threw me in the back of the car and sped away. No time to be surprised. It was a yellow cab. The driver turned around, wagged a thick finger at me and said, "Boy, you don't want to be here." I was so shocked I couldn't say anything. I thought I was making friends. The cabbie asked, "But where are you from? Like what planet did you just fall from?" So I told him that I was from Paris. He said, "Well, do you do that in Pigalle?" I still didn't know what was that. So I answered, "Of course, that's what it's for." Considering that the area was absolutely deserted with no light or activity in sight, the taxi driver had nothing to do in the zone. He definitely was my guardian angel looking out for me. I don't really remember what happened after, but it took me a couple of months to understand that I had met my guardian angel and that for sure he had saved my skin. I remember having cold sweats and the shakes for a couple of hours upon realizing what I had escaped. So two important things here. The first one is that I know for sure that I have a guardian angel. I would not recognize him if I met him again, but he does exist. And the second one is that innocence saves. If I had understood what was happening, I would have stiffened, taken a stance, and got knifed and robbed for my trouble. And most important, you can only be innocent once for the same thing. Do not ever try it again. It won't work. I have been through a couple of other situations where innocence saved me. Looking back, I'm more inclined to call those unconsciousness. And as a perfect balance to that story, a few months later, I found a job with a brokerage firm on Wall Street, my main reason to come to New York. I was living near Columbus Circle, and I was riding the famous A train down to Wall Street to get to work. I don't know how the subway is now in New York, but at that time, there was a real fauna that seemed to never see the light of day living in those cars. I remember a few. A guy on a wheelchair going up and down the same train through all the cars with a tape deck playing music with a cup next to it for people to drop coins into. The guy who was going from person to person asking for money. The loony shouting ceaselessly, I don't remember what, but not asking for anything. One morning, on my way to work, hanging from a strap in the crowded train, I found myself face to face with a guy, probably a junkie, waving either a knife or a straight razor in front of my face, trying to catch my attention. I don't really remember what was in his hands, because as soon as I perceived what was happening, I carefully, absolutely unfocused my eyes and was careful to look, say, way past him. He was not there. Still hanging from the strap, my body completely open to any assault. I knew that if our eyes crossed and caught each other, the knife or whatever it was would be in my face or some other place. That was quite an interesting situation. Like being faced with a snarling dog, knowing that it would ride on your fear, and the only way to go through that one was to not let any fear rise. I don't remember how long the face-off lasted or how it resolved itself, and I don't remember anybody in the car making any comment. Maybe it just ended at the next stop when everybody got out of the car and the energy was completely changed and directed to leaving the car. For me, those two events complement each other. They close a circle. The first one being on the innocent side, and the second one, the lesson of the first one well learned and applied. Of course, all this, is totally subjective. Maybe I'm completely wrong in my interpretation of both events, but I don't think so. Thank you.
Divyam, what year was that?
1969.
And so someone, mathematician here, how many years? All English teachers, no mathematicians. 44 years ago. So now, had you met with some problem there in one of these situations that turned bad and you were gone, then an amazing event that happened in Kyoto just a few weeks ago would not have happened. And that is the birth of Divyam's granddaughter. Yeah. No. Anyway, so I'm going to, this is probably, I see that, yes. If this baby were like one of those babies who parents think are cute and are not, I would not be doing this. This is probably, for the people who have babies in the room, this is the second cutest baby in the world. But for those who do not, it is probably the cutest. And I'm going to let you just take a look at this and make sure that Divyam and his wife wind up with this when you're finished, okay? Just pass me. I feel like I'm in a classroom. Gorgeous child, whose name is?
Anli.
Anli.
An is Africa, and Li is speech. Man is a terrorist symbol for wisdom. Africa, I don't know.
You know, I'm always interested in stories about my, as I said, furusato. And some years ago in Kyoto, I didn't expect to tell the story, but I met an English fellow, a Greek English, but he was named Nick. And I said, he said, I was in your country. I said, well, I went to New York. I said, well, what was it like? He says, well, someone told me it would be really easy to hitchhike from JFK to Manhattan. That's really far out. So Nick leaves the airport and he stands out front and he's hitchhiking, and this cop, you're going to excuse a little bit of foul language here, this policeman drives up the other way, comes up, catches him, and he goes, "How's it going, prick?" Excuse me. He was very mean. He was holding it down. And so Nick, knowing that this is New York, you better be careful, he said to the cop, yeah. And so he said, this is kind of loud. The next thing that happened was the cop took a two-wheel turn and came up in front of him. And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I have my passport out, his British passport." And he held it up like this in front of him. And the cop said, "You swear you're from?" And he said, "From England." He said, "Oh, yeah." And then it turned out the cop's wife was from England. And then he wound up going home with the policeman, and the guy put him up and so on. I said, "That's an amazing first experience in New York." He said, "Oh, that wasn't the first one." I said, "What was the first one?" He said, "When I got off the plane and I'm walking through the airport, this woman came over to me. Now, I'm giving her a picture hat. I'm doing that. I'm embellishing that. I don't know. He didn't describe a picture hat and a veil. And she said, 'I'm leaving New York. Please come to the gate and kiss me goodbye. I hate to leave New York and no one kisses me goodbye.'" And he said, "Oh, of course." He was a polite Englishman. And he walked over to the gate, and she, in my mind, lifted her veil, probably not, but he reached over and gave her a little on the cheek, and she said, "Thank you," and she left. And that was his first experience.